On the 9th of December 2005, the 15,000-ton container vessel CP Valour grounded in Baía de Praia do Norte on Fayal Island in the Azores. In bad weather, the vessel's hull quickly began to fracture. Various attempts to refloat the CP Valour failed, and 3 weeks later, she was declared CTL, a constructive total loss. Svitzer Salvage obtained the contract to remove her.
The CP Valour was on passage from Canada to Europe, and she ran aground on the northwest coast of Fayal in the Azores Islands in December of 2005. Tender was issued, invitation for tender was issued by the P&I Club for a wreck removal in February of 2006. And we mobilized the team for the last 2 weeks of February to go on the island itself and to try and get on board the casualty. We spent 10 days on the island, of which only 2 days we could get on board the CP Valour due to adverse weather. After that, we put a plan together, and our plan basically was going to try and remove the ship the same way that she came in, and that was to get the cargo off and the ship off and take everything out to sea. The other option we considered was to cut her up in situ and bring her ashore piece by piece, but we considered that that option was not viable, mainly due to the location of the casualty and with the local infrastructure would not support that type of operation. We were awarded the operation and we mobilized the team in April, and that required us to mobilize barges from the Mediterranean, Italy, a jack-up rig which came down from Hamburg, and tugs to support all of that. We had one mini cargo vessel, and she was loaded up with equipment in Maiden, and that brought most of our salvage gear from our Holland warehouse. Other equipment came from our South African warehouse in Cape Town, and we decided on Lisbon as being the main port for mobilization, and most of the equipment was loaded onto the barges in Lisbon and then towed out by tug to the Azores.
But total loss it was perhaps not. It was decided to try saving the wreck. Immediate action was needed. In IJmuiden, the Netherlands, near the head office of Svitzer Salvage, a coaster was prepared with necessary equipment such as generators, pumps, anchors, fenders, and diving gear. At a sizzling salvage headquarters, a team of specialists mobilized all and everything needed for an immense removal job.
Being in the Azores, which is almost halfway between America and Portugal, then the mobilization obviously took about 6 weeks, and the equipment started to arrive at the end of May. It was actually the 20th of June before the first container was lifted by the jack-up onto the associated barges. So that's about 6 weeks ago. The last 6 weeks have been pretty hectic.
Daily toolbox talks, allocating tasks for the day, and off to the casualty. First problem was access to the casualty. An ingenious 200-meter jungle bridge is constructed as safe access for daily work and saving time. But the Atlantic Ocean left no one alone. Waves batter the vessel at regular intervals. The hull receives ever more damage and starts to weaken further. But as an ice-class ship built in the late 70s, she should hold, at least for the time being. But containers must be removed. How to do that in these shallow waters? A jack-up rig, the GB1 with substantial crane capacity, is installed alongside the casualty. At the same time, the working barge P7 is brought into position to be moored alongside the casualty on the land side. Svitzer Salvage succeed in getting power on one of the aft winches to bring out the mooring line from the casualty to the barge. Careful maneuvering and bringing her in. Now, the P7 is relatively safe from the incoming swells. The next step is to moor a storage barge for the containers in a way that a maximum of the 20 and 40-foot containers can be lifted off the CP Valour. The mooring procedure is explained to the Svitzer tugboat captains. The experienced salvage crew of Svitzer Salvage, untroubled by the day's calm weather, manages to get the barge into position. Offloading containers can start. Broken or still in good order, they all need to be removed. Removal of the deck cargo means access to the cargo holds. Some are flooded and need to be pumped.
In de ruimen van het schip, daar zitten een aantal containers in waarvan de inhoud aan het rotten is. En daar komt heel veel zwavelwaterstof bij vrij. En die zwavelwaterstof die heeft zich door het hele schip verspreid. En dat betekent dat alle ruimtes, nagenoeg alle ruimtes van het schip, vergiftigd zijn met H2S. Dat gaan wij meten, omdat H2S een vrij gemeen gas is. Omdat bij een paar honderd ppm, de parts per millions, niet meer te ruiken is. Onze receptoren in de neus die accepteren dat niet meer, die gaan dat niet meer registreren. En dat betekent dat als men in een ruimte waar een paar honderd ppm H2S is, dat men dat dus niet meer in de gaten heeft. Het probleem echter is dat bij 600-700 ppm dat dodelijk kan worden.
So everyone who has to work in the cargo holds has to carry compressed air.
We passed the halfway mark. We've got, let's say, less than 150 containers to go. We've had 2 loads of containers from the Vavetje. First load was here in Horta, which is still can be seen in the corner. And the second load is on its way to Lisbon, should arrive this weekend. Now we enter the most critical phase, and that's the last phase, which is to try and reduce some of the flooding in hold number 2. Identify where the water ingress into the engine room. The engine room hopefully is not that substantial, can be contained, minimized or even stopped, but number 2 is very critical. We're going to remove the whole engine from the engine room and all the associated machinery, and that's going to recover almost 1,000 tons of buoyancy.
At Svitzer Salvage HQ in Horta, calculations are made and checked and rechecked by the computer refloating models. Removing all machinery from the engine room reduces cargo weight by another 1,000 tons. At this stage, every ton less counts. parts are cut into smaller pieces and removed as scrap. The last container is lifted off, and that means the GB1 jack-up rig can be relieved from duty. She will now be towed back to Horta. Here, she will help rearranging the barges with containers for Lisbon. The salvers continue under heavy pressure. What is more, the weather is going to change. The Atlantic forecasts predict high swells and northwesterly winds, not promising news. All empty cargo holds are now flooded. Interestingly, this now gives the CP Valour better stability against the battering waves. Generators and machinery are wrapped against the seawater. They will have to wait until the storm passes. Pete is worried and has to decide to abandon the casualty.
Haal je mensen terug?
Ja hoor, dit kan niet zo.
Even Danny thinks it's getting dangerous.
Gewoon, het kan een beetje gevaarlijk worden. Ja. We gaan er vanavond.
Nah, we're leaving this ship. It's getting too dangerous to stay here. Hey guys, not more than 2 on the bridge. After a final check, Jan is the last person to leave the CP Valour.
Dit is trouwens boven verwachting hoor. Ik had wel golfveld verwacht. We hebben eerder golfvelden gehad. Ik heb ze eerder gezien hier. Dat is altijd wel onder de indruk, maar dit is meer dan verwacht.
Er is een storm geweest 4 dagen geleden. En dan willen we kijken of die storm invloed heeft gehad op de scheuren en de gaten van die boot. En ja, dat houden we toch bij. Dus na elke storm gaan we toch nog even kritisch kijken of de schade of er meer bijgekomen is. En of er nieuwe scheuren bijgekomen zijn. Dat is erg belangrijk voor de berging.
The naval architect naturally wants to see the damage with his own eyes. State-of-the-art diving equipment and a diving inspector monitor activities underwater.
Ja, Roger. Waarom zit je nu maar?
Nou, er is wel iets veranderd. De slijboot heeft zand weggeblazen met zijn schroef. Dat kan je duidelijk zien. Dat heeft wel geholpen, moet ik zeggen. En we hebben nu ook een horizontaal scheurtje gevonden. Maar waarschijnlijk zat hij er al. Omdat hij nou het zand heeft weggeblazen. Dus dan komt dat horizontale scheurtje tevoorschijn.
Aan de bakboordzijde ziet het er allemaal wat dramatisch uit, moet ik zeggen. Ik had het wat beter verwacht. Maar met name in ruim 2 en 3 ziet het er toch vrij beroerd uit.
Immediately after the dive inspection, a meeting is held to discuss status. A decision is made, all plans for the refloating operation are set in motion. Before tensioning and towing the CP Valour begins, she has to be turned 90 degrees to face the open sea. Something that is easier said than done.
We prepared the stern chain of the Valour, and now we're going to pick up the staff press anchor. It's a 7-ton, and then connect it to the chain and stretch it out a little bit in like a 45 degrees angle for preventing the stern to turn to the land once we start pulling on the bow.
This first phase is very important. Once pulling starts, the CP Valour may not move higher up the shoreline while turning under any circumstance. A step press anchor must prevent this from happening.
We're going to go over to the buoy, pick the buoy up and lift up that step press anchor. Once we got the anchor onto the roller, we need to go full ahead to float the anchor so we can stock it up on the deck. And then we'll come back, pick this buoy up with a chain and connect the anchor to the chain and then drop it in position.
Harbor of Horta on the Vavace, the barge that's going to be the pulling barge for the whole operation, as we call it. And we just tested the Stranjak machines. These are the Stranjak machines. It's just a pulling system, which is going to hopefully pull the vessel from its place. Yeah, well, the testing actually went really well, so we're really happy because it works. And now we can go to the next step in the project to see.
After the tests, the Svitzer tugs bring the barge Vavace with the strand jacks to the casualty. At the same time, the Atalanta barge is loaded with the temporarily stored containers in the port of Horta. Captain Sloan guides the Vavace into position for the pulling, a delicate marine operation in which all available tugs participate. The positioning of barge and anchors is of vital importance for success of the pulling operation. The small tugboat Afon Karadoch proves very efficient. She brings the tow lines from the Vavace to the bow of the CP Valour. The two strandjack wires are each connected to a Dynema cable. Dynema is exceptionally strong. This has a braking force of 400 tons. But it must be handled with care. One small defect and it loses its strength. As they are still in the Azores, with the promise of more bad weather at hand, there is not a moment to lose. The salvers must be ready for the first available spring tide.
Yeah, we've got the port Stranjak is now up at 70 tons tension. The anchor is well buried. The touchdown point for the chain is about 97 meters from the barge itself. We've got the 8th cross connected in the fair lead. She's 400 meters of tow at 20% power. Batlax is in between her and the Remo. The Remo has just been connected now. We were meant to connect her on the main deck, but the swell is starting to pick up, so it's a bit too dangerous on the main deck. She's now on the break of the shoulder on the starboard side here by number 1 hold. They'll stretch their cable and we'll sit at about 30-40% power, make sure everything's good. The plan is to start the ballasting around about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock that we completely deballasted. At daylight we'll start increasing the power. The starboard strand jack they're working on at the moment to equalize the tension between the 19 wires. And hopefully by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning then we have a couple of 100 tons on the strand jacks, another 100 tons on the tugs. We're completely deballasted and we'll start the air pressurization then. And it gives us about 2-3 hours before spring high.
The following morning, everything is ready for the first turning attempt. Before she can be refloated from her present position, the CP Valour must turn 90 degrees to face open sea. On command, the tugboats increase their power.
Okay, you can just tell them the jungle bridge is now closed. No one wants to come across.
She's moving. Orders are given to cut the jungle bridge, but movement of the CP Valour is ahead and the connection breaks. The link with the shore is gone.
The bridge is cut.
Slowly, the tugboats increase power to almost 100%. Then one of the tugboat towing lines snaps.
Cross wire parted.
Slow motion clearly shows the forces at work. But the connection is immediately restored.
I think there's a wire on the lead, is it? Bring you up and connect you into the bow onto some chain.
Local people come and watch activities, but not everybody is convinced of success.
I'm fish line there. I know this place there, no? This offside the bar, the ship, big rocks, you know, the big rocks stay in the ship. You know, I don't believe this ship go out. Your idea. This ship, I think better go out 50 meters over there, after round, go out.
Jan, Piet. Ja, Piet. Ik blijf de nachtdienst komt naar jou toe. Okay.
Yeah, basically the initial pull has gone quite well. We've got up to 300 tons tension on the pull barge with the strand jack system. The anchors are holding. The tugs are all well positioned. We've replaced quite a few towage springs which have parted. Now we have adequate strong points. So we have well over 400 tons pulling power at the moment. The first high tide that we did the attempt, we had not managed to dewater all of the holds. Since then we have re-rigged pumps, rearranged the pumping arrangements and capacities, and now all but number 2 hold is down to the level that we want. So the engine room is dry, number 5, number 1 are all dry, and number 4 is dry. So number 2 is not as, let's say, dewatered as we wanted, but there's more water ingress. The sandbank that we had identified months ago is still there. We were hoping to do some prop washing before the actual pull started, but the weather and the swell conditions did not allow us. So now that we have flat calm conditions, we're keeping the tension up, the ship's rolling in her own bed, and we continue with the prop washing operation. We have 2 more tides before the swell picks up, so we'll continue pulling at each high tide, and in between maximize the time for prop washing. Wednesday the weather picks up. They're forecasting maximum swell of 5 meters. We don't want to be in this situation for then, but we think Tuesday night, as the swell conditions pick up, we'll be able to move her out.
Time-lapse photography clearly shows the movement of the ship. After 5 days of non-stop pulling, the crew is exhausted. but the CP Valour is now facing open sea. High seas roll in, and the decision is made on safety grounds to make the crew change by air. The Portuguese Navy moves in her helicopter. The experienced crew airlifts the salvers off and brings new men in. Now, it's time for the real power. One of the world's strongest tugboats has been chartered to perform the final phase. The Maersk Achiever, 90 meters long and 23 meters beam, has an engine of 23,500 brake horsepower and a bollard pull of 271 tons. She starts pulling the Casualty off her position where she has been for the last 9 months. In the late afternoon of the 20th of September 2006, she's afloat. The Svitzer Salvage achieved what many people felt was impossible, but they kept faith and made it happen. Determined men in a determined business. Svitzer Salvage, global salvage masters.
The CP Valour is now gone from the bay in Poja on the island of Fael. Over 400 tons of oil and pollutants were recovered, and of course this protected the rocks and the beaches from being contaminated. The cargo has been redelivered to owners and underwriters in Lisbon. For the last 5 months, we've had 86 people continuously involved, 11 nationalities from around our global operation. All in all, this can be considered a success for Svitzer Salvage.
The producers would like to thank everyone who contributed in any way whatsoever to the attempted salvage of the CP Valour and in helping making this documentary. Thank you.